Hey there, curious minds of our incredible community. Get ready, because this journey through the rise and fall of the British Empire will blow your mind and reshape how you see the world. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, it's 100% free, and you'll join thousands diving into history's biggest stories. Let's unravel how a tiny island ruled a quarter of the globe, and why its legacy still shapes your life today. Did you know that at its peak in 1919, Britain controlled 35.5 million square kilometers, 24 of Earth's land, and ruled over 412 million people, nearly a quarter of humanity? That's staggering for a nation smaller than many modern countries. But the real story isn't just about size, it's about ambition, conquest, and a cost most history books gloss over. Stick around, because what you're about to learn might change how you view global history forever. Let's start with the hard truth. The British Empire wasn't just about spreading civilization or building railways. That's a myth many still believe. While Britain introduced infrastructure and legal systems, these often served its own wealth and power, not the people it ruled. Imagine your homeland's resources being shipped away, your traditions suppressed, all to enrich a distant crown. That was the reality for millions. Another misconception is that the empire was all about trade. Sure, it started with spices and cotton, but it quickly became about control of land, people, and power. The transatlantic slave trade, for instance, forcibly displaced millions of Africans to work in brutal conditions. Even after slavery ended in 1834, exploitation continued through systems like indentured labor. You might also think the empire was unstoppable, but it faced constant challenges, rebellions, rival powers, and even its own mistakes. Early on, England's attempts at colonization flopped. The Roanoke colony in 1585 vanished without a trace, leaving only questions BBC bit size. So how did Britain go from these failures to ruling the world? And what did it cost? Let's dive into the blueprint. How did a small trading company end up ruling entire nations? Here's the story, step by step. In the late 1500s, England was playing catch-up. Spain and Portugal were raking in riches from the Americas, and England wanted a piece of the action. Queen Elizabeth I turned to private companies, chartering the East India Company in 1600 to trade spices and textiles in Asia. These weren't just businesses, they had armies and acted like governments. BBC bit size. Across the Atlantic, England tried colonizing. The Roanoke attempt was a disaster, but by 1607, Jamestown, Virginia, became its first permanent colony. It nearly collapsed from disease and starvation, but tobacco turned it into a cash cow. In the Caribbean, islands like Barbados, claimed in 1625, became sugar hubs, fueled by enslaved African labor. National Geographic Kids. Here's a wild twist. In India, the East India Company didn't just trade. After the Battle of Plassey in 1757, Robert Clive defeated the Nawab of Bengal, turning the company into a political powerhouse, ruling millions. Britannica. Imagine a corporation running a country. That's what happened. The 18th century was a battleground. Britain clashed with France and Spain over colonies and trade routes. The 7 Years' War, 1756-1763, was a turning point. Britain's victory at the Battle of Quebec in 1759 crushed French power in North America, securing Canada and parts of India. Britannica. But wars are expensive. To pay for them, Britain taxed its American colonies, sparking resentment. You know what's coming: the American Revolution, 1775-1783. Losing the 13 colonies was a gut punch, but Britain pivoted fast. In 1788, it sent convicts to Australia, founding New South Wales as a penal colony. National Geographic Kids. And in 1805, Admiral Nelson's victory at Trafalgar ensured Britain ruled the seas, a must for a global empire. Britannica. How do you manage an empire spanning oceans? Britain's answer was naval power, strategy, and key figures like Cecil Rhodes, who dreamed of a Cape to Cairo railway to link British Africa. Rhodes believed in British superiority, pushing expansion in southern Africa, founding Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, and Zambia. Britannica. The 19th century, dubbed Britain's imperial century, saw the empire soar. The Industrial Revolution made Britain the world's factory, craving raw materials and markets. The scramble for Africa saw Britain grab Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, and more. The Suez Canal, opened in 1869, became a trade lifeline Britannica. In Asia, the Opium Wars 1839-1842 forced China to open ports, giving Britain Hong Kong Britannica. India was the crown jewel. After the Sepoy Rebellion in 1857, Britain dissolved the East India Company and ruled directly, starting the British Raj. India provided troops and resources, but suffered famines and exploitation. BBC bit size. By 1919, the empire hit its peak, covering 35.5 million square kilometers and 412 million people, larger than any empire in history statistic. But cracks were forming. Rebellions, like the Indian Mutiny, and rivalries with Russia in the Great Game over Central Asia, kept Britain on edge. Britannica. Technology, like the telegraph, helped manage the empire. The All Red Line network, completed in 1902, linked Britain to its colonies instantly. History skills. Culturally, it was a two-way street. Britain spread cricket and tea, but curry and words like bungalow entered British life. Still, colonial policies often erased local traditions, like Lord Macaulay's 1835 plan to make Indians English in taste. BBC bit size. World War I-1914-1918 changed everything. Over 2.5 million colonial troops fought, but the war drained Britain's resources and sparked independence demands. Historic UK. Ireland broke free in 1921. World War II 1939-1945 bankrupted Britain, making it impossible to hold colonies. India and Pakistan gained independence in 1947, followed by African and Caribbean nations. By 1997, Hong Kong's handover to China marked the empires and Britannica. Was the British Empire a force for good or harm? Let's explore its legacy. What's left of the British Empire? Its fingerprints are everywhere, and it's a complex picture. The empire spread English, now spoken by over 1.5 billion people, powering global business and diplomacy. Parliamentary democracy and common law took root in places like Canada and Australia. Cricket, football, and tea became global phenomena. National Geographic Kids. The Commonwealth, with 54 nations, fosters cooperation among former colonies, Britannica. But there's a darker side. Colonial economies were built to enrich Brits, leaving many regions underdeveloped. The Bengal famine of 1943, worsened by British policies, killed 2-3 million Britannica. Arbitrary borders in Africa and the Middle East fueled conflicts like India-Pakistan tensions. Post-1947 Wikipedia. Cultural erasure, like Macaulay's education policies, suppressed local identities. The empire's end birthed new powers. The United States, once a British colony, became a superpower, its legal and linguistic roots tied to Britain. India and Canada have thrived, leveraging English and democratic systems. Britannica. Yet, some nations struggle with colonial legacies, and calls for reparations, like from Jamaica, highlight unresolved wounds. The New Yorker. So, was the empire a beacon of progress or a machine of exploitation? It's both, and that duality shapes your world language, borders, even global politics. What's the biggest legacy you see? Comment, I'm in. This changed your perspective. New here? Subscribe for more history deep dives. What shocked you most about the British Empire? Let's talk below.